My name is Caleb Rourke. I'm 26 years old, and I work as an industrial maintenance technician on the outskirts of Springfield, Ohio. I married young because I believed stability came from building a life with someone who shared your values and roots. Natalie and I lived 15 minutes from my parents' house, in a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. To the outside world, we were the calm, predictable, well-aligned couple. I made a point of keeping our life simple and protected. That Friday, in early March 2025, my shift got canceled due to a problem at the plant. I got home around 7:45 in the evening. Everything seemed normal, until I heard the sound of water coming from upstairs. I climbed the stairs slowly. The door to the master bedroom was slightly open. Steam was escaping and the light was on. For a moment, I thought she had prepared something special for us. But when I pushed the door open gently, I found Natalie and my older brother, Aaron, together in the bathtub. They were laughing, relaxed, naked. They didn't notice me standing there. I closed the door calmly. I didn't say a word. I went downstairs, sat in the living room, and waited. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. When they finally came downstairs with towels barely wrapped around their bodies and tense faces, Natalie tried to tell me I wasn't understanding the situation. Aaron stammered some excuse involving a misunderstanding and things not being what they seemed. The irony was that they didn't even know exactly what I had seen, and yet they immediately went into defense mode. I just said, "Tomorrow we have lunch with the family, as planned. We're going together." Then I went back to silence. That unsettled them more than any scene I could have made. Months before that night, I had noticed an excessive intimacy in the comments they made to each other. Jokes that went beyond acceptable, unnecessary touches. Looks that lasted longer than they should. But I refused to believe it. Aaron was my brother. Natalie was my wife. Trust shouldn't need proof. Looking back now, I realize I was deliberately blind. I chose comfort over clarity. That Friday night stripped away that choice. In that moment, I didn't need recordings or screenshots. I had enough. The clear image, the precise memory, the unquestionable certainty. More than physical evidence, I understood the power of social embarrassment, and I planned to use it. Saturday's lunch was already scheduled. The entire family would be there. It was the perfect stage. And I wouldn't need to raise my voice. I wouldn't need to throw punches or break things. The truth, delivered in the right place at the right time, would be weapon enough. After the discovery, I observed them both with new eyes. I noticed Aaron avoided gatherings where I would be present. Natalie became more distracted, claiming stress from work. It was obvious. This wasn't a slip. It was a routine I hadn't seen, and their cowardice would be exposed with words, not blind revenge. I would give them exactly what they feared most: accountability in front of the people whose opinions actually mattered to them. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken. I was past that. I was planning. Every word I would say, every detail I would include, every pause that would make them squirm. By the time Saturday morning came, I knew exactly how this would unfold. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. I woke up, made coffee, and went through my routine as if nothing had changed. Natalie was unusually quiet. She kept glancing at me, trying to read my face, searching for any sign of what I was thinking. Aaron had texted me twice asking if we were good. I left him on read. The silence was intentional. It was strategic. People fear what they can't predict, and I had become unpredictable overnight. We drove to my parents' house around noon. Natalie sat in the passenger seat, fidgeting with her phone, occasionally opening her mouth as if to speak, but then closing it again. I kept my eyes on the road. The radio played some country station I normally hated, but I didn't change it. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. Aaron's truck was already in the driveway when we arrived. He was leaning against it, pretending to check his phone, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Inside, the house smelled like my mom's pot roast and fresh-baked rolls. My parents were there, along with my younger sister Claire, my Uncle Dave and Aunt Patricia, and a couple of family friends, the Hendersons, who had known us since we were kids. These weren't strangers. These were the people who had been at our wedding in June 2023. The people who babysat Aaron and me when we were children. The people whose respect actually meant something in our small social circle. Everyone greeted us warmly. My mom hugged Natalie. My dad clapped me on the shoulder and asked about work. Aaron stood near the kitchen, nursing a beer, avoiding eye contact with me. Claire was setting the table, talking about her new job at the dental office downtown. It was all so normal, so comfortable, so completely unaware of what was about to happen. We sat down for lunch around 1:30. The table was full. Plates of roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, corn, my mom's famous mac and cheese. Everyone was talking, laughing, passing dishes around. I waited. I let them settle into their comfort. I watched Aaron shift in his seat. I watched Natalie push food around her plate without eating. They knew something was coming. They just didn't know when. Halfway through the meal, during a natural lull in conversation, I set down my fork. "Hey, everyone," I said, my voice calm and clear. "Before we go any further, I need to say something that happened last night. It's important, and I need to address it here with all of you." The table went quiet. My mom looked concerned. My dad frowned. Claire stopped mid-bite. "Caleb, honey, is everything okay?" my mom asked. I nodded. "Just listen, please." I took a breath, not because I was nervous, but because I wanted them to feel the weight of what was coming. Yesterday, I came home from work early. My shift was canceled around 7:30. When I walked into the house at 7:45, I heard water running upstairs. I went up to the master bedroom and opened the door. Inside the bathtub, I found Natalie and Aaron. They were together, naked, laughing. They didn't notice me at first. I closed the door, came back downstairs, and waited for them. Natalie's face went white. Aaron froze, his beer halfway to his mouth. My mom's hand went to her chest. My dad's jaw tightened. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. I continued. When they came downstairs wrapped in towels, they tried to explain. Natalie said I wasn't understanding. Aaron called it a misunderstanding. But there's no misunderstanding here. I saw what I saw. And I'm not interested in excuses or explanations that don't make sense. I turned to face them directly. "So I'm asking you both right here in front of everyone. Why were you naked together in my bathtub?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Aaron set his beer down, his hands shaking. "Caleb, man, this isn't the place for this," he said, his voice cracking. "Actually," I replied evenly, "this is exactly the place for this. Because whatever story you two want to tell, you're going to have to tell it in front of the people who know you best." Aaron tried to stand, but my dad's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Sit down, Aaron." It wasn't a request. Aaron sat. My dad looked at me, then at Aaron, then at Natalie. Is what Caleb said true? Natalie was crying now, her shoulders shaking. It's not what it sounds like," she managed to say. My Aunt Patricia, normally so warm and chatty, leaned forward with a look of pure disgust. "Then what is it, Natalie? Because it sounds pretty damn clear to me." Aaron tried another angle. It was stupid, okay? We were drinking and things got out of hand. It didn't mean anything." I almost laughed. "You were drinking at 7:30 on a Friday in my house, in my bathtub, with my wife, and it didn't mean anything." Claire, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Aaron, what the hell is wrong with you? That's your brother." The shame on Aaron's face was visible now. He couldn't maintain eye contact with anyone. Natalie was still crying, but no one moved to comfort her. My mom, who had always been the peacemaker, looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Caleb, I'm so sorry." I shook my head. "You don't need to apologize, Mom. You didn't do this." I stood up from the table. "I'm filing for divorce this week. I wanted you all to know what happened because I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to let anyone twist the story later. This is the truth. Take it however you want." I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair. Thanks for lunch, Mom. I'll call you later. As I walked toward the door, no one tried to stop me. No one defended Aaron or Natalie. The silence I left behind was heavier than any words I could have added. I drove straight home, packed a bag, and checked into a Holiday Inn Express on the edge of town. I didn't want to be in that house anymore. Every corner of it felt contaminated. The bedroom where I'd trusted her. The bathroom where I'd found them. Even the couch where I'd sat in silence felt like a monument to my own blindness. I needed distance, I needed clarity, and I needed to make sure I handled the next steps correctly. On Monday morning, I called a divorce attorney named Rebecca Lawson. She had been recommended by a co-worker who'd gone through a messy split a few years back. Her office was in a strip mall near downtown Springfield, wedged between a tax preparation service and a chiropractor. When I walked in, she was exactly what I needed. Direct, no nonsense, and unsympathetic to excuses. "Tell me what happened," she said, pulling out a legal pad. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she nodded once. "Ohio is a no-fault divorce state, which means we don't need to prove adultery to end the marriage. But what you witnessed gives us leverage in terms of asset division and any disputes that come up. Did you document anything?" I shook my head. "I didn't take pictures or videos. I didn't think I'd need them." Rebecca tapped her pen against the pad. "You might not. If she contests anything, we can depose her under oath. Lying in a deposition has consequences. Most people aren't willing to perjure themselves over a failed marriage. We'll file this week. Expect her to get served by Thursday." I signed the retainer agreement and left feeling lighter than I had in days. The wheels were in motion. I wasn't stuck anymore. The messages started within hours of me leaving that lunch. Natalie texted first. "Caleb, please, we need to talk. You didn't let me explain." I didn't respond. Then Aaron. "Bro, you made me look like a monster in front of everyone. That wasn't fair." I blocked his number. My mom called that evening. "Honey, I just want to make sure you're okay. Your father and I support you completely. Aaron isn't welcome here for a while. He knows what he did." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. "Thanks, Mom. I'm fine. I just need some time." She understood. By Tuesday, the story had spread. Springfield isn't a big town. When something happens in one family, it ripples outward fast. I started getting calls and texts from cousins, old friends, even a guy I played high school football with. Everyone wanted to know if it was true. I kept my answers short. "Yeah, it's true. I'm handling it." I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves, and people filled in the gaps on their own. Natalie's friends started reaching out to her, and from what I heard through Claire, the support wasn't what she expected. A few stood by her, but most were appalled. One of her closest friends, Jessica, apparently told her, "I don't care what your side of the story is. You don't do that to your husband, and definitely not with his brother." Natalie tried to spin it as a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment fueled by alcohol and stress. But the more she talked, the less sense it made. People weren't buying it. Aaron, meanwhile, went into full damage control mode. He tried to reach out to mutual friends, claiming I had overreacted and humiliated him publicly for no reason. But the problem with that narrative was simple. No one believed him. My dad had already made it clear to the extended family that Aaron was in the wrong. My Uncle Dave, who had always been close to Aaron, stopped returning his calls. The social consequences Aaron feared were unfolding exactly as I'd planned. He wasn't being vilified by strangers on the internet. He was being rejected by the people who actually mattered. On Thursday, Natalie was served with divorce papers at the house. She called me immediately, hysterical. "Caleb, you can't do this. We can work through this, please." I let her talk. When she finally ran out of words, I said, "There's nothing to work through, Natalie. It's over. Sign the papers." She tried to pivot to anger. "You're really going to throw away 2 years of marriage over one mistake?" I almost laughed. "One mistake? You were in my bathtub with my brother. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. And now you're living with the consequences of that choice." I hung up. The next week, I accepted a transfer offer from my company. There was an opening at a facility in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Better pay, better hours, and most importantly, 300 miles of distance between me and the wreckage of my old life. The position came with a pay bump from my current $62,000 a year to $74,000, enough to make a real difference. I gave my landlord notice on our rental house. We'd been paying $1,400 a month for a modest 3-bedroom, and started packing up the essentials. I made arrangements to move by mid-April. Natalie tried one more time to reach out, this time through Claire. She says she's sorry. She says she wants to talk. Claire relayed the message with obvious reluctance. I shook my head. Tell her I'm done talking. She can communicate through my attorney from now on. By mid-April 2025, I was gone. I loaded up a U-Haul with everything that mattered, my tools, my clothes, a few pieces of furniture, and drove east. Pittsburgh felt like a reset button. New apartment in Lawrenceville, new co-workers, new routines. The rent was $1,600 a month for a 1-bedroom, but the neighborhood had actual restaurants and things to do. I didn't know anyone, and that was exactly what I needed. No one asked me about my divorce. No one knew about Aaron or Natalie. I was just Caleb, the new guy in the maintenance department. It was liberating. Back in Springfield, the fallout continued without me. Aaron moved out of town by summer, taking a job in Columbus. From what I heard, he couldn't handle the sideways glances and the cold shoulders everywhere he went. My parents still haven't fully reconciled with him. They speak occasionally, but the relationship is fractured in a way that might never fully heal. Natalie stayed in Springfield for a while, but eventually moved to Dayton in late summer. The divorce was finalized in July 2025, clean and quick. She didn't contest anything. Maybe she knew she didn't have a leg to stand on, or maybe she just wanted it over as much as I did. I didn't destroy them. I didn't need to. I just created the conditions where the truth couldn't be avoided, and they destroyed themselves. Looking back now, in late 2025, I understand something I didn't fully grasp in that moment. Revenge doesn't always require elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes the most effective form of revenge is simply refusing to let someone rewrite the narrative. Natalie and Aaron wanted to control the story. They wanted to explain, to justify, to soften the edges of what they'd done. By bringing it into the light in front of people who knew us all, I took away their ability to do that. The truth became fixed, immovable, and they had to live with it. Pittsburgh turned out to be exactly what I needed. The facility here is larger than the one in Springfield, with more complex equipment and more demanding schedules. I threw myself into the work. I took on extra shifts, learned new systems, earned certifications I'd been putting off for years. My supervisor noticed. Within 6 months, by October, I was promoted to lead technician, overseeing a small team on the night shift. The raise was substantial, up to $82,000 a year, enough to move into a better apartment still in Lawrenceville but with more space and better amenities. I started going to the gym regularly. I picked up hiking on weekends, exploring trails in the Allegheny Mountains. I even started dating again, casually at first, just coffee or drinks with no pressure or expectations. One evening in September, I was out with a woman named Sarah, an ER nurse I'd met through a mutual friend at work. We were having dinner at a small Italian place in Shadyside, and she asked me the question people eventually ask. So, what's your story? Why'd you move to Pittsburgh? I gave her the short version. Got divorced, needed a fresh start. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Bad breakup? I took a sip of my beer and considered how much to say. My ex-wife was cheating on me with my brother. I found out, exposed them in front of the family, and left. Sarah's eyes widened. Jesus. That's brutal. I shrugged. It was, but I'm better off now than I was then. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You seem like you've got your head on straight. Not everyone bounces back from something like that. The truth is, I didn't bounce back so much as I rebuilt. There's a difference. Bouncing back implies returning to what you were before. I didn't want that. The person I was before was naive. He trusted too easily. He ignored red flags because he didn't want to believe the people closest to him were capable of betrayal. The person I am now is sharper, more careful, not cynical exactly, but realistic. I know now that people are capable of almost anything when they prioritize their own desires over their responsibilities. And I know that silence, used strategically, is more powerful than anger. I stayed in touch with my parents and Claire. We talked on the phone every couple of weeks, and I drove back to Ohio for Thanksgiving. The first time I went back, in late November 2025, I was nervous. I didn't know if I'd run into Aaron or Natalie. I didn't know how it would feel to be in that town again. But when I pulled into my parents' driveway and saw my mom waiting on the porch, those fears evaporated. She hugged me tight and said, "Welcome home, sweetheart." Inside, my dad grilled steaks and Claire updated me on her life. She'd gotten engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years, a guy named Travis who worked in construction. We talked, laughed, and ate like we always had. Aaron's absence was noticeable, but not discussed. It hung in the air like a ghost, acknowledged but not confronted. At one point, my dad and I were alone in the garage. He was showing me a new table saw he'd bought, but I could tell he had something on his mind. Finally, he said, "You handled that whole situation with more maturity than I would have at your age. I'm proud of you, son." I nodded, not sure what to say. "Aaron made his choice," my dad continued, "and he's paying for it. But you didn't let it destroy you. That takes strength." I appreciated his words, but I also knew the truth. I didn't feel strong in that moment back in March. I felt destroyed. The strength came later, in the decision to keep moving forward instead of staying stuck in anger and betrayal. A few weeks ago, I heard through Claire that Natalie had started dating someone new, a guy she met at her gym in Dayton. Claire seemed to think I'd care, that it might bother me, but when she told me, I felt nothing. No jealousy, no regret, no anger. Just a mild curiosity, like hearing about a stranger's life. "Good for her," I said, and I meant it. Not because I wished her well exactly, but because her life had stopped being relevant to mine. She was a chapter I'd closed and filed away. Aaron, I heard even less about. Last I knew, he was still in Columbus, working some sales job and keeping a low profile. My parents hadn't spoken to him in months. My dad had made it clear, until Aaron took real accountability, not just empty apologies, but genuine acknowledgement of what he'd done, there wouldn't be a relationship to repair. Aaron hadn't reached that point yet, and maybe he never would. As for me, I'm doing better than fine. I'm doing well. The job in Pittsburgh is stable and fulfilling. I've built a life here that's entirely mine, not shaped by family expectations or small-town familiarity. I have friends, hobbies, goals. Sarah and I are still seeing each other, and while I don't know where it's going, I'm okay with that uncertainty. I'm not in a rush. I've learned that good things don't require force or desperation. They unfold naturally when you're patient and intentional. The lesson I took from all of this isn't complicated. Not every betrayal requires a dramatic response. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away with your dignity intact and building a better life without the people who hurt you. Natalie and Aaron gave me a gift, even if they didn't mean to. They showed me who they really were, and they freed me from a life that was comfortable but ultimately shallow. I left Springfield with my name clean and my conscience clear. They stayed behind, trying to justify the unjustifiable. I don't think about them much anymore. And when I do, it's not with anger or bitterness. It's with something closer to indifference. They're part of my past, not my future. And that, more than anything, feels like victory. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.